What's up, YouTube fragrance family and friends? I'm Tommy with Studio Sins. Welcome to another video. I hope your phone's on mute and you've had your pee break, because today's one of those videos that's chock full of information. Today we're taking a closer peek at Dolce & Gabbana's light blue line. So when we come back, we're gonna go over each one of them chronologically, go through the note breakdown, talk about what's good or bad about them, and I'll give you my take on which are the best and which are the worst. That and more, so stay tuned. Welcome back, everyone. Well, as mentioned, we've got a jam-packed video. We're talking about Dolce & Gabbana and their light blue line. Now, there are a few of the releases that are better than others, so I'm gonna give you the skinny, as it were, when we go over each one of these. Let's go over them chronologically so that you'll know the order in which they were launched, and then we'll go over those notes, the note breakdown, and I'll kind of give you my take on which I think are the best and which I think are the quote-unquote worst. Admittedly, I don't have every single one of the line. I don't think my opinion's gonna change very much. For those of you that are interested in knowing what to buy and what not to buy and what they're like, I wanted to go ahead and get this video out for you guys. So tackling this theme from the top down, let's talk a little bit about the presentation. Most of these are representing some portion or some island or some aspect of Italy. They're pretty much all the same, with the exception of they may change in color. For example, this is light blue sun, this is light blue Eau Intense, this is a frosted glass, this is just a clear glass, and that's pretty much the spectrum of the differences in the actual style of the presentation. The only variation or difference is going to be in color and maybe a slight variation in style here or there. Let's go ahead and dive right into the chronology of the fragrances. Which was the first released and when? Of course, the very first light blue that was released was in 2007, and it was, of course, called Light Blue Pour Homme by Dolce & Gabbana. Light Blue Pour Homme represented Dolce & Gabbana's dipping their toe in the blue genre of fragrances for men. They wanted something a little bit fruity, citrusy, great for spring and summertime fare that would become an iconic fragrance. And they sort of succeeded, but I think this is one of those cases where most of the flankers are actually better than the original. Now, some of you may disagree, and that's completely fine, but really all light blue is just a distillation of a single formula. Each one of the light blue flankers is similar to the original light blue. Let's go over the note breakdown of the original Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue Pour Homme. Light Blue Pour Homme features top notes of bergamot, mandarin orange, grapefruit zest, and juniper, with heart notes of rosemary, Szechuan pepper, and rosewood, resting on a base of American muskwood, frankincense, and oak moss. The OG opens with some nice mandarin orange citrus. You've got grapefruit zest in there, which is a harkening back to the latest release of Forever, which is very grapefruit, realistic grapefruit note is its primary note. And then, of course, some bracing sharp juniper berry to punch through that opening and make something memorable. And then you get an aromatic, spicy, peppery Szechuan pepper. Rosemary is a spice, and then a little bit of rosewood, so featuring a little bit darker wood in the heart there. Resting on a typical early 2000s trio with a little bit of a difference. So you got that American muskwood, you've got that oak moss, which is typical, but they introduce frankincense, which normally frankincense, it can often be used in summertime fragrances to pull everything, to bind everything together as a fixative and make it a little bit more darker and slightly resinous at its base. And that adds to the feature of longevity. And that's what assisted the original Light Blue Pour Homme in becoming popular, was its zingy, citrusy open, its woody dark heart, and of course that darker binding base. Moving ahead in our timeline 5 years, they waited 5 years before releasing the very first flanker. In 2012, it is Living Stromboli. Stromboli, of course, is a coastal town in Italy, like most of these, and I'll show you a few photos there so you can get an idea of just how beautiful. Living Stromboli is not only a light blue flanker, it's also a light blue fragrance, literally. It's got kind of a light blue tint to it, and because it represents a coastal town, it's definitely an aquatic fragrance. Let's go over that note breakdown. Living Stromboli features top notes of pink pepper and citrus fruits, with heart notes of aquatic notes and geranium, resting on a base of amber, patchouli, and vetiver. So a little bit fewer notes than the original with a distinctive focus on aquatics. Don't let Living Stromboli fool you, because when you first smell it, you're like, it's just a kid's fragrance. It's got that lightly sweet, fruity air or essence about it, but that dries off in no time. Once that's gone, you get actually a really nice aquatic, mature fragrance. Still got that lightly salty, well-traveled signature scent for men kind of DNA about it. Super pleasant aquatic fragrance, therefore Living Stromboli is a win in my book. Now most of these flankers we're going to be talking about, like Living Stromboli, are limited editions, so some of them are a little bit harder to find. Living Stromboli is relatively easy to find, and you can get it for about anywhere from 40 to 45 bucks at discounters. Moving ahead in our timeline to 2014, just 2 years later, we see another light blue Pour Homme fragrance flanker released. It is Discover Volcano. Discover Volcano is one of those that I don't have. It is one of the harder ones to find. You can still find it out there, but it's relatively obscure, and I think because it's probably the least crowd-pleasing of the light blue line. Least mass appealing. Well, let's go over the note breakdown and you might be able to figure that out. Light blue Discover Volcano Pour Homme features top notes of Italian lemon and ginger, with heart notes of cypress and lavender, resting on a base of cedar and vetiver. Sounds like you're getting into a nice, fresh, lemony open with some lemon, some ginger to give it some buoyancy. Again, there with a mix of spice and citrus, you've got mandarin orange and rosemary in the heart. And again, combining a light grassy vetiver with a wood, you've got cedar and vetiver as a base. Relatively simplistic scent profile. I'm not gonna say this is not a good fragrance, and that's why I don't own it. Why I won't own it, I am a completionist, I am going to own it. But the reason I feel like this particular limited edition has kind of faded into relative obscurity is because it's just a basic, lightly generic man's fragrance. You've got lemon, ginger, orange, rosemary, cedar, vetiver. It's just a very formulaic, almost like by the numbers kind of fragrance, and that's not really what the light blue DNA is all about. It's more about aromatic, expressive, unique, exploratory. And that's not really what Discover Volcano ends up being, and the name behind it is so dynamic. The volcano they're referring to is actually on Stromboli. Stromboli features a very, actually, sometimes dangerous volcano, as it's gone off before when people have been, visiting the area, would be pretty dynamic. And the fragrance, Discover Volcano, is a little bit less than dynamic. So another year goes by, 2015, and then we see a release of another limited edition light blue Pour Homme. This one, however, is called Swimming in Lipari. And I gotta say, I really like Swimming in Lipari, literally and figuratively. Let's talk a little bit about its note breakdown. Light blue Swimming in Lipari Pour Homme features top notes of sea salt and grapefruit, with heart notes of mandarin orange and rosemary, resting on a base of ambroxan, dry woods, and musky notes. A little bit similar to Stromboli, going back to our aquatic roots. Swimming in Lipari, just like the name implies, swimming, is a very nice, brisk, citrusy, fruity, aquatic fragrance. You've got 3 kinds of citruses in the open, including citron, so it's going to be a super bright and refreshing open. In the heart is where it starts exploring aquatics, but it's sandwiched between 2 notes that help the heart be very ebullient. So you got bitter orange leaves, then you got your marine notes, and then Szechuan pepper, and that makes an appealing, very aromatic scented sandwich. Because of the base of this, which contains ambroxan and some dry woods and very musky notes, it has a lot more in common with Acqua di Gio than any of these others. So it's got a very nice, like dry, woody, driftwood like presence, or like water-soaked wood. And that's why Swimming in Lipari is a very appealing fragrance, and in my opinion, one of the hits of the light blue line. And of course, like all the others, Lapari is an actual location in Italy. Here are a couple of photos. Looks like a fantastic coastal town to visit. I would love to check out a place and swim in a place like Lapari. Moving forward in our timeline by just another year, 2016 sees the release of another limited edition light blue Pour Homme that is much more popular, the town itself, than any of the other towns. It is Beauty of Capri. Capri is one of the Aurelian Islands, a beautiful coastal town. The air is crisp and clean. The water is emerald green and blue. Can you imagine the aerial drone shots you could get of a place like that? Would be amazing. But what about Beauty of Capri? What's its formula like? What's it trying to do? Let's take a look at that note breakdown. Beauty of Capri Pour Homme features top notes of Sicilian bergamot, citron, and bitter orange, with heart notes of bitter orange leaf, marine notes, and Szechuan pepper, resting on a base of cedar wood, vetiver, myrrh, and musky notes. Formula, you may be noticing what I noticed, which is kind of a slight evolution of the formula. It's kind of headed in a specific direction, and each version or each limited edition flanker is getting closer and closer to the kind of refinement that I think Dolce & Gabbana is really trying to find. We all know that, and I'll tell you whether I think they succeeded with their latest version or latest iteration of the light blue DNA is a standalone iconic fragrance for the ages. Despite what Beauty of Capri has going for it, that is some really high quality notes, a nice lineage to come from, that light blue DNA, it happens to be just a moderately good fragrance. It is a solid fragrance, it's definitely worth owning, but it's not going to be anything groundbreaking or anything amazing or fantastic, and it's really not that divergent from Swimming in Lipari. So between Beauty of Capri and Swimming in Lipari, I'll take Lapari over Capri. This has got more to do with the Eau Intense light blue than does Swimming in Lipari. I think Swimming in Lipari makes a nice independent, fortified statement of its own, as opposed to being just similar to another fragrance. This is a little bit more similar to light blue Eau Intense than I would like. It's still a solid scent, it's still worth owning, and it's moving ever closer to that tropical feel that they're trying to really refine and get. So this is a slightly more tropical fragrance than Swimming in Lipari is. So if you like that, you might like this a little bit better. The reason Beauty of Capri smells a little bit more like light blue Eau Intense than the others is because 2017, which was just a year later, saw the release of light blue Pour Homme Eau Intense, the intense version of the light blue DNA. Now, light blue Eau Intense happens to be the most popular version of the fragrance line, and there's good reason for that. The intensity is actually amped up quite a bit more in this fragrance than in any of the other releases. Let's take a look at that note breakdown. Light blue Eau Intense Pour Homme features top notes of mandarin orange and grapefruit, with heart notes of juniper and marine notes, resting on a base of amberwood and musk. So again, erring on the side of simplicity, we just have 6 notes that create this fragrance. Again, it happens to be the most popular of all. This one is a lot more tropical, marine feeling than any of the light blue flankers. Light blue Eau Intense checks all the boxes that most men want in a fragrance. It's perfect for any occasion. It's got amazing projection, great longevity, and specifically, it's fantastic in high heat. One of the better high heat fragrances out there that buoys it just another hour or two. So not only do you get a typical 7 or 8 hours out of this, you get an additional hour or two in high heat. And it took that original DNA from 2007, amped it up quite a bit, and made it the popular, iconic fragrance that it is today. The problem with light blue Eau Intense when it was released is the same problem it faces today. It's just unoriginal. The unoriginality is actually built into the name, light blue. It's just a light blue fragrance in the blue genre of fragrance. In the barrel of bargain basement bin fragrances that are blue fragrances out there, which there are a literal ton of them, this just happens to be a little bit better in quality because it's a Dolce & Gabbana product and it smells good, it smells nice. It's had more time to gain ground than a lot of blue fragrances out there that are actually a little bit better. But it's still a solid fragrance for all the reasons that I mentioned and definitely worth owning. Another year goes by, we see 2018 come down the road with Italian Zest. Italian Zest is one that I don't own. Something happened to the formula with that particular release that kind of seeped its way into other flankers after that. And the fragrance itself begins smelling a little bit like, what am I trying? It has that kind of spick and span, fantastic pine sol without the pine, kind of cleaner smell to it that is more synthetic than it is refreshing. While there's nothing wrong with a clean smell, fresh lavender scent, this says, and actually smells really good, but it also smells like a cleaner. It's got this astringent smell that isn't attractive. It's got more of a synthetic smell to it. And that's what Italian Zest is like. Kind of an overabundance of a citrus trying to be a tropical aquatic fragrance. And I don't think it was super successful. However, fair is fair. Let's go over that note breakdown. Light blue Italian Zest Pour Homme features top notes of lemon, bergamot, grapefruit, and mandarin orange, with heart notes of rosemary, Szechuan pepper, and rosewood, resting on a base of musk, frankincense, and oak moss. So it becomes abundantly obvious by the formula that Italian Zest was trying to ride on the successful coattails of the previous flankers. Kind of a mix and match of all the fragrance notes that are in the previous 5 or 6, if you include the OG obviously, and incorporate it into a single fragrance, and you would think that that would create the best of the 6, and it actually creates the worst of the 6. However they blended it, whatever they did, it's just a very astringent, household cleaner smelling, lemony fragrance. Again, in a pinch, it's better than nothing, but we're not comparing everything. We're just comparing the light blue flankers, and to me, that's probably the worst. Fear not, light blue flanker lovers, better days are to come, and they came just around the corner. A year later, as they created a pattern of yearly releases now, Light Blue Sun was released. Now, admittedly, Light Blue Sun bears some resemblance to Italian Zest, but it's all the good. If there are any positive aspects of Italian Zest, this took them and ran with it. It's more fresh, refreshing. It's moving away from the household astringent, cleaner type smell. Let's talk about Light Blue Sun's note breakdown. Light Blue Sun Pour Homme features top notes of Italian bergamot, ginger, ozonic notes, and grapefruit, with heart notes of rosemary, cypress, coconut water, and cedarwood, resting on a base of vanilla, oak moss, vetiver, and white musk. Here we see the brand new addition of 3 different notes. We've got ozonic notes, we've got coconut water, and vanilla, which makes for a very nice trio in this fragrance DNA. It adds a little bit more deftly toned tropical feel to the fragrance with that coconut water, and the vanilla adds some sweetness to it, adds a little bit more creaminess and smoothness to the body, and that's what makes Sun not just tolerable but enjoyable as a fragrance, even with that little bit of household cleaner. It's just a great all-around spring and summer fragrance. It's very citrusy, very bold, and of course, the best thing about it, it carries that light blue DNA. Moving ahead in our timeline, up until this point, it seemed that Dolce & Gabbana became in the habit of releasing a new flanker for the light blue fragrance line every year. But they broke that pattern with their latest release, and that wasn't the only pattern that they broke with the light blue DNA. Moving forward in our timeline, 2 years later to 2021, it sees the release of Light Blue Forever Pour Homme. Forever Pour Homme was really the reinvigorating, the revitalizing, the reanimation that the fragrance line deserved and needed. First of all, the perfumer that created it is Shyamala Maison-Dieu. They went back to the original DNA and they were like, what was good about this and what was bad about it? Kind of pared it down and boiled it down and asked a few more important questions like, what do people want? You know, what are guys looking for out there in a signature fragrance? What's going to be the best kind of scent to smell, wear, and feel in the summertime? The answer became Light Blue Forever. Let's briefly talk about the note breakdown. Light Blue Forever Pour Homme features top notes of grapefruit zest and Italian bergamot, with heart notes of violet leaf and ozonic notes, resting on a base of white musk and Java vetiver. It's the perfect answer to the light blue line. It's still very fresh, still very citrusy, it's very tropical. They took a component of the light blue DNA that became a staple note in almost all of them, and that is grapefruit, and they amped it up. They were like, let's make a grapefruit note that is extremely realistic, hyper-realistic. So that's what you get when you spray Light Blue Forever on. It's very simply a hyper-realistic, simple grapefruit note. but in its simplicity lies its elegance. It's got great performance, it's got great stability, extremely mass appealing, crowd pleasing, but in a very good classic way. And that's what makes Light Blue Forever not only the best flanker in the line, but it's also not a limited edition like these others are. One thing Dolce & Gabbana got right was simplicity is best. Simplicity equals crowd pleasing, mass appealing, like everybody loves something that's simple but works. You've got that grapefruit bergamot combo in the open, which is pretty much just grapefruit in your face. Bergamot's just there to kind of buoy it a little bit. Got some sharp bracing ozone, a little bit of violet leaf in the heart, with a darker, more tropical vetiver and that white musk. It has a fantastic dry down. That dry down is just creamy, lightly orangey, fantastic signature scent, great for any circumstance, great high heat fragrance. My hope is that Light Blue Forever will continue carrying the Light Blue line into a unique exploratory discovery arena and area for Dolce & Gabbana and for the Light Blue line. That puts a wrap on my quick overview and comparison of the Dolce & Gabbana Light Blue line of fragrances. We talked about 9 fragrances. We went over 9 different note breakdowns. I know that's a lot of information to kind of parse and disseminate in a single video, but I hope you could find this information beneficial. The entire line is definitely solid, it's definitely worth owning, and they each have their individual uses. The only ones that I would caution you about to be wary of are the ones that carry that, astringent, household cleaner kind of smell. Most notably, Italian Zest Pour Homme and Sun Pour Homme. The best of the line, starting from the top down, you've got Light Blue Forever, you've got Swimming in Lipari, you've got Light Blue Eau Intense, and you've got Living Stromboli. Those are my 4 favorite of the entire line. Guys, thanks so much for stopping by and checking out today's video comparison. As always, thank you so much for your support on my channel. I'm Tommy with Studio Sense, and I'll see you tomorrow.